can you still be, I wouldn't even say pro-black because I don't even like the term pro-black because it just means so much different things, but could you still, and the key word here is sustain, so could you still sustain a relationship, an interracial relationship, while actually fighting for, you know, the black cause or fighting for the whole black movement? Because what I'm finding is, it's weird, as there's some couples that I know where the white counterpart is more clued up and involved with the actual black struggle than the black counterpart. And then it's just like, how does that even work? And then you've got somewhere, you got a lot of black men that are now, who have picked their wife or their white wife, for example, because of the fact that they thought she was easier, or they thought that she would give them an easier life, and have now come in to face that fact because it's like they're 10 years into their relationship and it's like, oh, right, you know what? I can't lie. This is how I really felt. I really felt like white people were like this towards me. I really, to the white counterparts, thinking you wasn't keeping that energy 10 years ago. You was acting like you was there, like, but all of a sudden now you're expressing that. So I feel conversations have definitely arisen. I know with Eve is with she's with that guy from Gumbo 3000, that British guy. You know Eve, the rapper Eve.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. She's been living in the UK for about must have been 12 years now. She's been living in the UK for a while. Yeah. She's with I can't remember his name again, but he owns the whole Gumbo 3000 thing in it, and a few other things. So she was saying, look, like, I've gone through, so I've had some of the most toughest conversations in the last few months, because what she's finding is that, and this is just obviously from an article I read, what she's finding is that like it's peak, because now you can't hide from it. Before, you can kind of say, oh, that's just black people. So if you get stopped and searched by police, you're walking with your white wife or you're walking with your white husband, and it's like you see a black guy get stopped in the street, oh yeah, that's just them gangs, that's just them thugs. Now it's really come to the forefront where every single white person right now is feeling the need to address the situation, and not even only make sure that they're not seen as racist, but also to get understanding. Not every single white person, but a lot of them are open for that conversation. So can you still sustain a interracial relationship at the same time fight for, you know, for black struggle? What do you guys think?
Yeah, 100%, because the black struggle is a human struggle. Do you know what I mean? It's a sect of the human race, but unless you're like a complete like asshole, how can you not have? Do you know what I mean? How can you not be empathetic and want to help? Basically, a part of you. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's part of the human race. A group of people been part of human race. You'd obviously want to help those people. So in my experience, we haven't had like any of those issues at all. We're both very pro everything. And, you know, I've even started my own movement that I was telling you about, where I'm trying to get those stories out, because I feel in the UK particularly, racism isn't addressed as much as it is in the US right now. Like, every time you look at my newsfeed, it's always about the US, the US, the US.
It's very covert in the UK.
Yeah, it is. It's insidious in the UK. But yeah.
Speak on what you said you've got like an event. I remember you were saying you've got like some event or something you're trying to do to help this particular topic with interracial, you know, people in interracial relationships, obviously trying to fight racism or whatever. Speak on that a little bit, because I want them to obviously hear, because you're into a relationship yourself, and again, a lot of people don't see that perspective. They see it as, whenever they see someone with a white counterpart, they may be like, oh, you know, she's no longer, you know what I'm saying, or he's no longer. Yeah. So just speak on that for.
Yeah. So this is important. We're on Instagram and Twitter. It's at this_is_INPT. And what we're doing is we're collecting stories from people about any racism from work or police brutality, stop and search, any issues that have arisen in the UK, and we're publishing them in various magazines in the UK to sort of get those stories out there and get that narrative out there, so that people can stop saying that, oh, we don't have an issue with racism in the UK, when in fact we do. And I think it's important because it lets people be aware, and then a conversation can begin, and we can start fixing a lot of the issues that we have here.
Do you guys think, yeah, because I'm looking at it now in the sense of this younger generation, because I'm not showing my age here, but I'm gonna show my age. The generation, we're generation X, I think we are, in it, or generation with like anyone that was born in '89, sort of.
Oh, we're millennial.
Okay, millennials. See,
yeah, Gen X would be like 1995 to 2005.
Oh, right. Okay, so that's generation X. Yeah. So the generation X, I feel like they're more like, I'm not seeing any boundaries or any borders with race. Like a lot of young people that I speak to, like the other day I met one Chinese woman. She was like, well, not I want to say like a woman, she's like a young lady, about 21. And she's like I think virologist or something like that.
Yeah.
And she was like, she kept talking about, her boyfriend and her partner and whatnot. And she must have mentioned, I think she must have mentioned his name, whatever. I was like, what, is he Nigerian? She goes, yeah. And I was like, okay, I've never known Chinese people to even date, a black person like that. In America you may see it, but in the UK. And she was like, no, like, obviously it's funny because they're the only, I would say, people of color in their actual lab, that their whole entire faculty. So it's like, because they're the only ones there, they've related with each other so much, and it's helped them grow as people, instead of them actually saying, well, hey, I'm Chinese, and over here there's a group of people that are accepting me more than accepting black people, so I'm going to band with them, which normally what happens in
because of the model minority myth.
Right. That, the whole, so even that in some workplaces you get this whole divide where you have obviously, the white bosses, the white, managers, and then there's like an Asian group that's there, and then you've got some Asian people as managers, or some people that higher up, and you get this narrative that some of the Asians don't want to be associated with obviously the blacks, at a certain lower level, because they feel like those at the top are not going to really, do you see where I'm coming from, accept them or see them as anyone, of importance, because that's how mentally systemic racism has infiltrated the work. I wouldn't even say it's infiltrated the workplace. I feel like that's what the workplace was built on. I've definitely learned that now, especially working full time myself for more than 10 years. Like, I've realized that. But Generation X now, they're just literally, there's just no borders. Like, they're dating back and forth with different races, and what you're starting to see is they're realizing that, you know what, like, I can't, like, for example, I was chatting to that same Chinese lady, and she was saying, I find it a bit disrespectful for me to go and enjoy people like Kendrick Lamar, people like J. Cole. I go to their concerts, I'll go to a Future concert, enjoy, black music, listen to them talk about, especially someone like J. Cole, is a very conscious rapper, talk about the black struggle, and then go back home and be like, oh yeah, it's just all in my boyfriend's head. The ones there, like, so I'm finding that, I think with the newer generation, I don't know, what do you guys think?
Well, I find that's the same with our generation. Like, everyone, like my friends and like people I know, we've never had that sort of segregation. It's like, I've got friends from all over, I'm married to a white guy, but before that I've also dated other people of different races, and it's never been a thing. It's just, if you like someone, you like someone. It shouldn't matter like what their skin color is or what their culture is. I just think, especially in like what you're saying with the Chinese lady and
Chinese lady,
getting with the Nigerian guy. Is it Nigerian?
Yeah, Nigerian,
a Nigerian guy. Because I think like it's really prevalent now, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, all people of color are coming together because there is that sort of bond there, and understanding, because it's something that all people of color have had to deal with to an extent. And right now, everyone coming together, I think it's a powerful message, because it's because all of our cultures are quite similar, and all of us coming together to fight a single cause, I think, just sort of speaks volumes, is in just how much of an issue it is. Do you know what I mean?
A few things that I want to touch on as well. I think it is the conversation. I think you mentioned earlier, the biggest thing for me is having that conversation. And if the conversation's not there, I think that's where there have been people who have been in interracial relationships where when the subject matter has arisen, it's like, I'm shocked that these are your views, because I didn't know that and I didn't understand it. But I do feel like, to me, if there's an honest conversation with two people from different races, like a very honest conversation about the perceptions, like in terms of getting to know somebody, because these topics, I think we can assume they always come up, but they don't always come up. I've known people who've been in relationships for years together, and it's only when racial matters have arisen in the media and, you know, there's a bit of a back and forth that it's like, 1 second, that's really how you feel, that's what you think, you know. And it's so I think it is a case of just having those honest conversations, because race does play into it and it is a factor. And I think it's important, especially when you're with somebody, if you're going to build a family together, or you're choosing to have children, or you're choosing to spend the rest of your life with them, it's a part of your identity. So it's important that you talk about it. And I think that's the case with just my perception on relationships, like outside of the race matter. Generally, you have to talk about things, because if you don't learn who you're with and you don't understand them, there'll be other factors that will get in the way, and race will be a big one. Especially with things like people's families, because that one person might not have that perception, but their family might. How's that going to be handled? You know, you could be dealing with somebody where they're not racist, but their family's really racist. And so it's like, how do we now handle this moving forward? What's that going to be like for our children? So I think these are really sensible conversations that need to be had. And I think with what's happening now, it's been so much, it has been in people's faces for so long. And I do think that the fact that we was in lockdown contributed towards why people paid so much attention to it, because it wasn't as easy to go back to your everyday life and distractions around getting to work, coming home, going out, dinner, etc. As a bit like everyone's in their home, so people really had to pay attention. And it was at the point where I think it became very undeniable. Like it's like at the point where we can't keep pretending this isn't happening. We can see it. That it's forced, I guess, the nation in a way to have those conversations. And I've seen people who have found, like, they've had friends. I've known people who have had friends that have been their friends for years. They've grown up with them, and these things have kind of really, it's really impacted on their friendship now, so that it's like they're no longer friends, because they're like, I really didn't think you felt that way because of how you treat me. But the person's like, yeah, but it's just you. I don't know about the rest of you guys, you know. So I think with those conversations happening, to me, I think that's the key to whether or not a relationship would be sustained, because if the conversation hasn't happened, at some point it's going to become a factor, whether it's through two people or whether it's through your child then now going out and experiencing these things or being treated in a certain type of way. That conversation has to take place. But I think literally even through the media, like where you've seen, I watch EastEnders. So on EastEnders, with I think it's great, because I'm like, you can see, it gives people an opportunity to have an insight into things that they haven't really necessarily, I guess, experienced for themselves. But like, there's a storyline with Keanu, and he's with Tiffany, and they play out a really good example of how she's not racist, but she's like, he's getting stopped by the police, and initially she's very much like, don't be silly, it's not because of your race. And you can see he's building frustration with the fact that she's not acknowledging that, no, it is because of my race that I'm consistently stopped and looked at as the attacker or the aggressor, even in situations where you've seen me be the victim. And it happens to the point where, like, they've reached a point where it got to so bad that she was like, we can't even deny it anymore, I know what it is. So she's tried to kind of tackle it in her own way, and he's kind of got to that point where he's like, no, do you know what, like, you're making this really bad for me, you're making it worse, because you can kick off and that's okay, but if I'm with you, it's still going to be me that kind of is at the back end of whatever happens, you know, whatever's happened here. It's going to be me that's blamed for it. And so the way the storyline goes, Keanu is played, he's a mixed race character, Tiffany's white, and her uncle, Jack, is a white police officer. So it's like they kind of play it through this storyline where you see how it can become an issue in relationships, and it doesn't mean somebody has to be racist to not see these things, but it's like when these conversations aren't taking place, and I had this in a place that I worked previously, I allowed my colleague to talk to me, and I said, I'm happy for you to ask me these questions, because if we're not talking about it, you're never going to know. You're just going to walk around hoping you're not insulting people by saying certain things that might be offensive. But if I choose to consistently get offended, there's no progression there, because you say something, I'm offended, I shut down, communication stops, you walk away feeling even more nervous about saying something to the next black person, or, you know, or asking anything that you might want to ask. Now, obviously, there are offensive questions, so that's a separate matter. But if it's a genuine, I don't know, and I had to tell her the same thing. I was like, I don't know much about your culture, and you can teach me, because there might be things I say where you're like, that's a bit mad, we're not all like that. So I was like, you know, I think it's healthy to have those conversations, and again, in relationships, I think that's just the most important thing.
Yeah, no, of course, communication is key, and I think those conversations, in my experience, have come up naturally. For instance, like when you're watching a movie or whatever, and then something's happened in a film or whatever, and you can discuss it, or if something's happened in the news. And I think having open discussion, like what you said, is part of that, because then you kind of go back and forth and have like an understanding of what the other person thinks or thought, and then build on that and correct when needed. That's how you learn.
It's you know, you're 100, both you see 100% right. And listening to both of what you like, to listen to what you both said. What I'm finding is the stereotype, because obviously when you use the example of EastEnders, Vicky, when it was like the whole, you know, you got I think what was his name again?
You know, I got his name wrong. It's not even Keanu, it's his brother.
Oh, it's his brother. Oh, okay.
It's not Keanu, it's his brother.
But yeah, I don't watch EastEnders and that. So but obviously with him being with his you know, white girlfriend, and obviously the father being a police officer, what I'm finding is that with these stereotypes in the movies, the only movie today I've seen that's actually tried to accurately depict that, I can't remember the actual name, but it's starring Kerry Washington. It's not Scandal.
Oh, When They See Us, like no, not Netflix.
Not When They See Us is a very good example as well.
Yeah,
because that talks about the whole, you know, that talks a lot more about the actual systemic racism against black people. But I was talking about more in the sense of, what's her name again? Kerry Washington, the one that does Scandal. She did a movie on Netflix where basically she's got like a white ex-husband, I think, and they have a son together. Now, basically the police have called them to say their son has been arrested, and blah blah blah. So she's come down to the police station, he's come down to the police station, but obviously they've come at different times. So I think she arrives first, and what happens is that when she arrives, she's obviously trying to communicate with a police officer, is a white guy. And the guy's looking at her thinking, yeah, like typical kind of ghetto mum, whatever. And he keeps saying to her, oh, you know, your son's all right, and this and that, this and that. Anyway, cut a long story short, the husband obviously turns up now. Now, when the husband turns up, the white
American Son.
That is the movie, American Son, yeah. American Son. Literally, when you get a chance, watch that, because when I watched it, I was like, bro, like so the husband turns up, the police officer's like, oh, what? Are you the captain? The police, because basically they were trying to get the captain, it was late at night, they were trying to get the captain of that precinct to come in, interview the son, and basically release him, let him go home early, whatever, innit? Then the other police officer seen a white guy now, so he's like, oh yeah, you must be the captain. He was like, captain? Yeah. He's like, that's my son.
Yeah.
And then the police officer was just like, whoa. Like shocked, like he just flipped, and he's kind of like, okay, cool, I've left you. But obviously I think the father works for the FBI. So the father's asking certain questions like, why have you arrested him without this, and why have you... Anyway, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm probably going to have to now. So spoiler alert. But to get to my point, at the end, throughout the movie, you're going to see both of them argue about these different perspectives of obviously how they see their child. Now, in America, I find that they find that when you have a child with a black woman or vice versa, black guy with a white wife, that the child obviously comes out mixed race, yeah, as they say. But in America, they say, no, your child comes out black because essentially, if you look at scientifically, our genes are more dominant. So, whereas the white genes are more recessive. So it's like the child, majority of the time, always comes out having the black features. It may be a little bit lighter in the skin complexion, but whereas in the UK, I find that not many people say they have a black child if they're in an interrelationship. And the reasoning, when you speak to some of these people, is because they feel like by saying that, they're excluding the white counterpart. And I was kind of like, no, well, it's not really like you're excluding, because at the end of the day, this is the genetics of what it is. This is how the world is going to see him. And then you start to look at it and think, for real, when you look at the actual police, when they're identifying black males, sometimes when they're identifying black males, you can look at them like, no, that guy, he's mixed race though. Why would you say he's... But in their head, they don't see it as any correlation and difference. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
They're just
I think
like,
that's more, I think that's more cultural, in the sense that, like, you don't, with like, well, I don't have kids yet, but when I do have kids, I would want my kids to know both cultures, because my husband's Irish, I'm East African as well, so I'd want my kids to know all of our cultures. But I do agree with you that when the kid comes out, they look black, the police will see them as black. So I think also teaching your kid that is important. Yeah. But I think it's also like, I think when people say, oh, my kid's mixed race, I think they're referring to the cultures. Sort of like, I want my kids to know both cultures, because a lot of mixed race kids do have that struggle sometimes where it's like they're in the middle of both sides, and sometimes they don't know, like where they belong in some cases that I've read about. So I think it's a cultural, like,
because it's like, as well, just quickly to say as well, in America they pushed for it to become the mother's race because of what was happening during the slave trade, where women were getting raped, so they were raping black women, and obviously the baby's born, and it was like, well, what do we do with this baby? Where does the baby go? Because initially that child was going by the father's ethnicity. So if a white male's now, like, if this slave master or whoever's raped this black slave and she's given birth to the baby, that's a white child, meaning that child is free and has these privileges, and it caused a little bit of issue there. So that's where they then introduced the idea that the children will go by the race of the mother.
Yeah,
I think it's a one drop rule. It's like if you've got one drop of African blood in you,
and that was to eradicate that issue of these kind of. It's like, it was weird. It's like they kind of tried to make it an in between stage. It's like, where do we put them? Because actually, even though I've done this, I'm not sure if this is really what I wanted. And I think that also probably contributed to the whole in between in regards to the paper bag test for complexion, and as to whether or not, because if you think about it, if you're doing that test, most of the children that were mixed race are more likely to be working in the homes. And even though that person maybe has gone out and raped this lady, it doesn't mean they don't care at all about their child. So it's like, I can't publicly embrace you as I would my other children, because obviously on top of that, that's not your wife. But I'm going to keep you a bit in here, so you don't have to deal with all the hard labor of being out there. So it's like, yes, I think that's kind of how that system formed. But
see, this is the thing, with that now, because with Hollywood and their stereotypes, like for example, American Son. What I found was, obviously, you've got the Kerry Washington plays a mother. She's very, 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 like, concerned and stressed about her son because she hasn't seen him.
Yeah.
And father's very relaxed. He's not like upset, but he's very relaxed. And I feel like watching that, for me, my perspective was, if we were to fight if we're trying to fight if we're trying to drain this whole Black Power movement, if I'm now with someone that's in higher power now, like for example, my wife's like a detective, and our son gets arrested, you find that they not that they have to use their white privilege to obtain some form of authority, but you find that it becomes very difficult for them to accept that certain things could happen. Because at the end of that movie, another spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, you find that the son is caught on camera being shot by a police officer. So the white police officer, because he saw the black man first, was just basically stalling. So he was just stalling to cover it up, because obviously he had sort of known that officers shot someone. But because the officer shot someone, it was a black male, he didn't think in his head, maybe it could be this mother here that's just stressed, because that's how they apply the situation. They're just thinking, oh, it's just another guy. And throughout the movie, it's very good, because you watch the father talking about, well, I've been trying, innit? Like, obviously, I know I'm his white dad. I know when I pick him up from school, his kids look at him and they're looking at, your dad's. And even though his dad works for the FBI, he had to keep that quite secret, because, again, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Whereas the son is going through that whole black phase of trying to be, around black people, listen to the music, trying to become a rapper, whatever, that kind of stuff. So his father's thinking, not only are you kind of distant from me, but you're also taking on like the stupid part of the culture sort of thing.
Like overcompensating.
Right, overcompensating. Whereas obviously Kerry Washington, the mother's like, no, you're just another. She's just sort of seeing it as like she's victimizing herself quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like with stereotypes, this interracial relationships are they're very good at making the black woman look like a victim or sometimes crazy. And then obviously the white counterpart looking like, well, I've just gone with you because I genuinely love you, but it's kind of like I had no other option, which I believe is wrong. I believe is very wrong. And I feel like those stereotypes are very, very dangerous right now when you're looking at, how we can obviously work together, because during these protests, I was seeing white people taking down statues. I'm like, raw. And apparently they have been petitioning in most of those universities to get it down from time. So, it's like when I'm seeing the Sir Edward Colston statue come down, and you're seeing obviously people like Tommy Robertson doing a rant online about BLM, I'm thinking, why are you so angry? When all you can see in these videos is white people taking down these statues. Why are you so angry? And then it deemed me. I was like, yeah, because what it is you guys don't actually want unity. A lot of these
they're like anarchy.
Yeah, they love anarchy. They want division.
That's why like the model minority myth and things like that were created, just so it caused that line between one group of people of color and the other, because they don't want unity. They don't want people to come together and realize, oh wait a second, we can actually work together to like get this shit sorted. Like they don't want that. And that now that's happening, all of these like racists are coming out of the woodwork, and they're just like, no, all lives matter, blue lives matter, like all of this crap. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I think although our Instagram feeds may not be full of Black Lives Matter things anymore, I think it's still important to sort of keep that narrative going and pushing, because for the first time in a long time, we actually have enough voices to actually make a change. And I think it's imperative that we keep going, regardless.
And I think this is one of the things I think I touched on in an earlier thing is that in an earlier episode is that there's a certain narrative that is being pushed by the media, and so they're going to keep pushing that narrative because it's clearly serving somebody to have people.
But thank God for social media, because we're seeing the truth.
Exactly.
Like the media might be saying, leaders or thugs or whatever, but we're seeing what's actually happening, and it's the police.
Because you see even down to the whole thing about how like the media does it with everything, like the perception of the fact that, do you know what, okay, so just kind of touching back onto the interracial relationships, the idea that, well, all black men leave their wives, so they never stay with you. Furthermore, you're not even their wife. They resorted to their baby. They all leave and they all separate.
Exactly, and it's like, excuse me, but I was raised in a household with both my parents. You were raised in a household with both. It's like, that's such a lie that all Black men are like that. It's like, no. Some men in general are like that, but not all men are like that.
Where would you, for me, all right, so what you're saying is this, you know, because as we're on stereotypes now, it's very important, and I like where it's going right now, because like you said, the narratives that are put out there that, you know, Black men are, you know, in the family, they're never in a home, you know, Black women are always crazy.
Wait, can I just quickly finish what I was going to say on that?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, go on.
Just on that as well, is because I realised, obviously, through the work that I've done, like, over the years, there's, like, there's just as many white couples who don't stay together, who co-parent, and it's not looked at or blasted in the media like, oh, you know, it's just, they give a generic divorce rates are rising or divorce rates have risen. But then when it comes to Black men in the household or staying with Black women, no, we're going to talk about race as a factor now. Now it's something to do with, it's because you're Black that you're not staying with your partner. And it's like, I think when you're out, the more you get out there in the world, the more you start to realise that it's nonsense, and it is a narrative that's being pushed on TV, and it's not the reality, because I know many people, including myself, like many people who've got their parents that are there, you know what I mean, and even if their parents aren't together, they're still very well
together.
There's still that unity there, and there's still that family. But it's like, if we keep making people believe this isn't the case, for, let's say, somebody who's in a bit of a more strenuous situation, like let's say a young male who's like, okay, I've got this, like, I'm in this relationship. I don't want to go into, like, I guess the religious push as well for that type of unity, but it's like, in a relationship, the second it gets too hard, the media makes me believe it's really easy for me to just walk away. Like, it's fine, it's what we do anyway. And then everybody that looks at that child who's like, okay, well, your parents aren't together, immediate, like, do you get what I mean? Like, there's like this idea that this is what's happening, where you hear jokes, I think, again, more in America, that I've heard these jokes being made on memes where, like, oh, what, your dad went out to get the milk and he didn't come back. That's not everyone's truth.
And then, like, when you flip it as well, it's like what's happening with Vanessa Morgan from Riverdale. So she's pregnant, and she recently did like a baby reveal, and then it was released that her husband is leaving her. He's I think he's white. He's leaving her, but instead of it being like, oh my God, like, I can't remember his name, he's a baseball player, why have you left your pregnant wife? It's, oh, she must have cheated. That baby's not his. Like, it's like, now it's like the fault of, like, the Black chick that's her husband and filed for divorce.
This is the thing, it's funny you're saying that, because it's just like the whole Meghan and Harry situation. And it's
like you have a pedophile within the royal family, but yet you choose to focus on the Black person.
Like, oh, she's got into his head, and you know, she's said this, and I'm just like, wow, you lot are that afraid. Like, Meghan is, you know, I'm no disrespect to Meghan Markle, but, you know, she's not the blackest of Black people, if you understand what I mean.
She's mixed race.
She's mixed race, and not even only that, she's not walking in. They're acting like she came into Buckingham Palace with a dashiki on and a head wrap, talking about, I'm gonna free Harry from the man. You know, I'm like, right, like, you lot are that afraid of someone like Meghan. And what made it, you know what, with the stereotype thing, is funny, because it's like, just like they always stereotype our Black men. You look at the Jeremy Kyle show. You look at the Jerry Springer. You look at the Maury show. Even sometimes in the Maury show, it does change up. But the Jeremy Kyle show, I'm like, how have they got this narrative out here that Black men cheat, Black men are this? And you look at the Jeremy Kyle show, and you're like, it's the exact same thing. If you're in an impoverished area or an impoverished community with a lack of resources, and you're living on an estate where there's, I don't know, 100 and something families, and there's one small playground that's not even big enough for your own son to play in, you're going to get crime. You're going to get a lot of these different aspects of negative. It's no longer going to be a neighborhood. It's going to be a hood. You're taking a neighbor out, because the neighbor is no longer caring. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Mm.
You know, even the key words, estate, it's property. It belongs to somebody. So when you're saying, yeah, I'm from that estate, you're saying I'm from that property. No different to you saying I'm from that plantation.
Yeah.
You see where I'm coming from? Like, so it's still the same sort of ownership in that sense. And I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of negative stereotypes on black people, but then essentially it's across the board. You know, your boyfriend's white. All right, okay, cool. Like, you know, like, what is the baby gonna come? Like, all that kind of, all them little
Or
slight
even just the idea, the whole perception of there's a way in which like black women should be acting and black men should be acting, and that's not very black of you. It's not black people.
Oh my god, I get that. I get that all the friggin' time, and it's so irritating. And I look at them, and I'm like, well, how am I supposed to behave? Like, this is who I am. Like, like what does it mean to be black? Like, it's just...
I've had it like literally in the case of initial meetings. Most people be like, they assume my character straight away.
Yeah.
They make all these big assumptions, and then once they get to know me, they're like, "Oh God, you're so nice," and "Oh my God, I can't believe you're interested in that," and "Oh my gosh, you watch this," and it's like, yeah, because most black girls aren't most black girls. It's just the circle that you've surrounded yourself with and the few that you know, which really doesn't talk for the rest of all the other black women out there in the world. And it is
exactly,
it's like everything becomes like a racial thing in terms of what you do. Like, this is a black thing to do, that's not a black thing to do, so you don't do it. And you have like young children who it's like, it's unfortunate for them, but if they grow up and they kind of go through an identity crisis, they start trying to emulate these things. So like, I found it when I first went to uni. I found a lot of girls playing up to the stereotype, and it wasn't genuine. It was like, why do you put on this facade? Why do you feel like you have to feed into the way in which black girls are perceived at this point in time and in this environment? Why? Just be yourself, you know? And it was like, and you just see it happening. I see it happen with some young black boys who also then feel the need to present in a certain way because of their environment. And I think that kind of goes back to what you're saying a bit about the whole estate and the pushing of it becoming a hood, and not so much being the whole idea of community when it comes to neighbours has been eradicated in London. I think most people do their neighbours. Like, it's just not. It's like most people don't know their neighbours' names. They don't want to talk to them. It's this fear that's been emulated of people thinking like, I don't want them in my space. What if you're doing this and what if you're doing that? But yeah, it's like these stereotypes really don't help. And I feel like my head is so like all over the place today. But another thing I just want to mention, just on the basis of like, because I know we're talking about interracial relationships in terms of like an intimate relationship when you're with somebody, but I also think friendships matter in that as well, in the sense of it's a form of a relationship. And just kind of going back to the point I was making earlier about the conversations and kind of breaking down those uncomfortable barriers of we're not talking about things, so we're not progressing, we're not getting anywhere. There was a guy called Daryl, I want to get his name correct, it's Daryl Davis, right? And I heard him do a talk, and he basically was a blues singer, but he went around befriending a lot of Ku Klux members. And people were like, why do you keep going to these rallies? Like, what's wrong with that?
The big guy from America.
Yeah. And he ended up becoming really good friends with one guy that was quite high up, to the point where they were like, this guy's probably going to kill you. Like, it's not safe for you to go and meet him. And 3 years of them talking about things, they broke down those barriers. He was that guy's daughter's, the guy's daughter's godfather. The guy made him his daughter's godfather. The guy ended up leaving the Ku Klux Klan. And I think part of the issue is, it's like, okay, these are currently your views, but your views are a bit ignorant. So have some insight. Do you get what I mean? Like, so let's talk about these things. And I think even in that situation, the conversation was had. They built up a friendship over years. They got to know each other because they genuinely got along as well. There was that factor. It wasn't a case of, well, we're just doing this to try to see if we can break down barriers. But there was a genuine like there. And, you know, the way he ended up turning around a lot of clan members. And I just think that's so like important to acknowledge, because of what we're kind of talking about in regards to the sustaining any type of relationship with somebody. It is about having those honest conversations. But sorry, Jessie, I now digress because you was going to say something.
Everything we're speaking about obviously is from our experience, and it's true. And I feel like if you have those conversations early in the interracial relationship, like, I feel like you should have that before you guys should even start, like during the dating process, because one thing I do find, and I'm going to sort of end with this year, this last question. One thing I do find is that when I was working at my old workplace and I would be honest with some of these conversations with like race and whatnot, I realized that the white people treated me a bit more different. There was a bit more of a respect. So there was a bit more of a respect, a bit more of an understanding there with some of them. Some of them would be like, that's a bit too much. And those were the racist ones, really, because what you find is that they couldn't take hearing that they were wrong in doing something.
Yeah, those are the ones that are like, I'm not racist. Like,
yeah, I'm not racist, but you can't say that black people don't kill black people. I'm like, bro, every crime movie I've watched since I was growing up there's like white on white crime. Like there is
no, 100%. It's just not as publicized.
And if you think about the fact that we're a minority, so if who's the majority that's committing these things, your numbers are
right?
I don't understand. We're a small amount. We're not that much, but we're the biggest when it comes to everything else. So obviously for me, what I learned was like what Vicky's saying, having these conversations makes people realize that, because even some of the white guys I used to work with, you find that although they've moved up north, they all grew up in London, like South London. Back in the days, they all grew up in like Brixton and places there. They used to go to these sound raves and whatnot. And obviously they've moved for whatever reason, but then at the same time, you find that they are a bit more kind of, well versed or well understood with certain things, because obviously some of them travel quite a lot. They travel to different countries. They go to India, they've gone to Africa, and they're like, you know what? I enjoyed it. It wasn't, I didn't go there and there was just hunter-gatherers in the bush, chanting and whatnot. I hate that narrative. But anyway, with the narrative basis, which is going to be another podcast as well, because the narrative is a very, very big influence. How do you feel, like when we all have, I've got a son, who's going to be 3 soon. How do I explain to him, besides myself and, his mum, how do I show him a positive stereotype when it comes to, say, for example, he wanted to date interracial? What interracial couple could he look to or look at that's actually, successfully working their stuff out, having them conversations? But not only that, but also in a sense of, and that's obviously if my son decides to go with another race, he may not. But where are the examples of positive black people, and positive relationships where they're not deemed to be, do you see where I'm coming from? They're not deemed to be, because this is the issue. People are like, we're trying to build a black family. And then some people are like, no, we're trying to win for black power. Well, I want to still have a white wife. Why can't I have her in a black family, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that's an issue there, where it's like what you were saying earlier. Because you're in an interracial relationship, you can't be like pro-black. And I think that within itself is an issue within the black community, where it's like, in order for you to be pro-black, you must only date within our race. You must, do you know what I mean? You must only do these things. And again, it's like, and that goes against what we're fighting for, because what we're fighting for is just equality, so that I can date whoever I want to. I can do all these other things that we, at the moment, fight to actually be able to do. So I think within our own community, if we sort of take away the negatives about race mixing and things like that, I think it would just make everything a lot more just easier for everyone, and just create an understanding, because I think everyone's different. Yes, some people who are in interrelationship relationships, maybe they don't have those conversations, maybe they're not into politics or into the movement or whatever, but I think just, again, with the whole stereotype thing, just no generalization of people, because I think that causes more harm than good.
I do think as well, one of the issues for me has been, it's so hard for me to not like engage, because I really have to manage, like I try to manage my emotions when it comes to social media in regards to the comment section. So I'm like, I don't want to go back and forth with people, because I'm probably going to end up angry, and you're still going to just be, it's different if you're having a conversation, but if you're just trying to push your point and argue, you don't want to see what somebody else is saying, then it's pointless. And I think I've experienced that multiple times in comment sections, so I've refrained from them as much as I can now. But I think even the idea of because this is one of the things I think we spoke about, but it wasn't in this episode, but we mentioned the idea of this narrative of being, it's like this perception is given that if, for example, a black guy is dating a white woman, black women have a problem with it, and you're a sellout, and you know, how dare you, and it's such a negative thing, and it's like a push out system. But I also believe that the way that the media portrays black males in this position is that, and where the issue tends to lie, and it isn't about the fact that you're dating outside of your race. The issue is that it's the kind of the disrespect that comes with, okay, well, I'm dating a white woman because black women are X, Y, Z in the other, and it's all those negative connotations that are put across where I think the resistance comes from. So most people have the perception that, you know, well, if you're dating outside of your race, it's because you've given up on your race. It's like, no, people just like who they like. Sorry,
go on. No, finish.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, there are like people obviously who, like, I've got a white friend who she dates black guys, and what she has found, and she has said, and she's been very honest about it, is the fact that there's a lot of she's dated a few black guys who will try to diss black women to her, and she doesn't entertain it, but nor would she be defending it the same way in which a black woman would defend herself in that situation. So I find the comment section is full of all of this. The second you're doing that is, you don't care about us, just don't diss us. And I think I've seen a lot more now, black women commenting and just being like, just don't disrespect black women. Nobody cares about what you're choosing to do. Just don't disrespect black women in the making of that. And the reason why I'm kind of not so much commenting on it being the other way around is because I hear it so heavily with black women being the ones having the problem. You know?
I mean, like, sometimes, like, Dion and I would be out, and my husband, and we'll get, like, stare downs, like, from random people who don't even know us. And it's like 2020, like, what's your issue? Like, just check it out. Like,
honestly, even with the Love Island guy that was with, I think he was with, the girl was Sophie, it was like maybe the last Love Island, and they found his ex-girlfriend released messages of him telling her that he's disgusted in her because she's been with a black guy. Like, the issue lies on different matters for different people.
100%.
Sure. But it's just that I think the biggest issue, in terms, and this is just relating to you talking about positive role models, Jessie, is that part of the issue is that in the media, when it's put out there in a way where it's like, this black guy's chosen to now date this white woman, and so look, he's up there now. He don't piss on black people. Like, he don't care for you black women. He you know, you're not good enough, and that's why this is who he's with. And so I think there is that struggle in having a positive role model that's in the limelight, because again, this is the narrative that the media keep pushing. You know, to the point where you've got people really believing that this is everyone's opinion, and you know, this is just how it is. This is what everybody feels and thinks.
But it doesn't help as well, like, I find in a lot of, like, TV shows and movies, they also push that narrative. It's also, like, if a black woman dates a white guy, it's like, oh my God, like, that's so weird, like, tell me all about it, like. And then it's like the white guy is dating, the black guy is dating a white girl, and it's just like, oh, he's anti, like, black women, and like, just that narrative as well is pushed. And I think, like what I was saying earlier with the angry black women narrative, it's up to the people that work in that industry to change that narrative, because it's poisonous. It's poisonous because it's making that narrative like a reality. You know what I mean? Like, people are actually believing that. Like, how, you see a group of boys in hoods, therefore the hoodlums, they should be stopped and searched. And do you know what I mean? Where it's just, it's those sort of narratives that are pushed on TV or in movies that are actually doing a lot of damage to the community as a whole.
It's like these narratives are definitely serving somebody's purpose, and I think people that are behind the media, because you must be benefiting from all these perceptions you're putting out there.
And the thing that irritates me the most is that a lot of the times these narratives are made and created by Black people, and it's like, can't you see what you're pushing out there? Like, what you're putting out there is doing so much damage to all of us. Like, you have the platform to create something that speaks truthfully about your race. Why wouldn't you do that? Why would you create something that it's just stereotype after stereotype after stereotype, instead
But
of
you,
actually putting out something that is honest with people who are different, people who don't conform to your, like, the standard, like, oh, okay, like this girl's got a weave and she's loud, and this guy is like wearing like I don't know, like sweat, like hoodies and whatever, and he's in the gang, and this guy, do you know what I mean? That's pushing that sort of narrative. Why can't it just be just a group of people who are just like have full personalities and like not
you know what?
pushing a stereotype?
You know, what you're saying is true. I feel like, just thinking about what you're saying, I feel like a lot of this stuff stems from how white people have viewed black men and obviously black women in that narrative. So I know with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who's a very, very good scholar. She's passed now. She really is very good with breaking down the constructs of race. And she had this this theory that, you know, everything dark is like a fetish or a fantasy. So when you're talking about, you know, Valentine's Day, for example, and it's like, oh, I want to get some dark chocolate. I want chocolate. Like, they've always associated the black man or the black man's phallus or the black man as a image, as to be this exotic, you know, being.
Even the whole dominatrix field, because that's like one where it's very clear. They call it dark.
This is the thing. Like, look at that. Like, it's, you know, and she was really good in breaking down. She said, think about it. All the things that describe a good-looking man is, oh, he's tall, dark, and handsome. And that literally, at first, I went over my head, and I was like, for real? Because what white man is tall, dark, and handsome? And now a lot of people would say, no, dark hair.
Yeah.
But then, like, again, you know, I'm not saying, obviously, this is from what she was saying and that.
Yeah.
I was thinking, for real, why is it then deemed as a fetish? Then I went back to research, and obviously you find, because in slavery times, this is what's always been an issue with, you know, the so-called, you know, racist white elites, is that they know, or they believe that it's, you know, it's all about white genetic survival, right? And in order to survive, they need to essentially protect their white women. So they know by them mixing with black men or black women mixing with white women, the child is inevitably going to come out black. So what they try and do is they create this barrier around them to make sure that, you know, that's why if you look at Emmett Till, for example, you know, just looking or commenting at a woman's dress or whatever could get you killed, because they're so afraid of that actually being something, you know, general, or actually being something that's actually, you know, from a human perspective of love. Like, oh, you got a nice dress. Oh, that looks nice. They don't want that. They don't want that. So they have to make sure they go in there hard. And I feel like those stereotypes or that mindset has been passed into the media. And that's now where you're getting the so-called, you know, thuggish, you know, black man that's just uneducated and whatnot. And then you're getting with some white you know, white women obviously higher up in the, you know, in the racist circles. They're looking at it as like, we need to keep enjoying this flavor of chocolate or dark, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You hear what I'm saying? And we need to keep enjoying that. So what we're going to do, we're going to paint the black woman to be crazy. So Love and Hip Hop on VH1 would get all the airtime. But Underground, which was a TV series, one of the best slave TV series I've ever seen, like where they're actually rebelling.
Oh, I watched that. It was good.
Underground. You know what I'm talking about, innit? Yeah. I think
is it
John
off
Legend
Netflix
was like
now, or is it still
executive
there?
producer. Huh?
Is it still on Netflix, or is it off now?
I don't know if it's still on. I watched, there's 2 seasons. I know they were trying to get season 3, and I think John Legend was one of the executive producers, and he was trying to get Oprah and all these people. All these people, their hands were tied. Oh, we can't do it. But you know, everything else is there, and it was like, okay, I get it now. When they see us, another movie you look at where you're getting, you know, a woman who is not even like trying to learn or trying to think. She is just saying, no, these animals raped this woman. That's it. I don't care. Even up until now, she's still saying that. And again, it stems from that whole mindset of even past slavery of, you know, protecting their race, protecting. So in her head, she's seeing it as, yeah, you guys are devils. And
Yeah.
one thing I learned from Dr. Francis Cress Wilson and even Dr. Joy DeGruy was they were sharing these presentations of lynches or pictures of lynches, you know, in America back in, you know, the 1800s, early 1900s. And
Like
what you
last
find
week.
is, oh, well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
exactly that. And what you're finding is that they would go to a lynching. Picnic was a term invented, you know, for the lynching, which means pick a nigger. You know, a barbecue, from what I heard, I don't know how true it is, a barbecue was a type or a degree of burning that you would do to a black man. So they used that and flipped it into burning chicken, burning meat sort of thing. It was all mad. But anyway, when you look at those photos, you're seeing white children there. And they're smiling, they're happy. There's no empathy, there's no fear. It's just like, oh wow, you're burning. So that mentality has gone into the industry, and the industry now has said, oh, a black woman's pregnant and she's going to give birth in a hospital. Yeah, they're always loud, they're always complaining, they're always moaning. Just give her epidural and wherever, and just, you know, one's there, or just give her not out. You know, that's how they've always seen us. So it's like now in the movies, like for people to direct a movie like Gods of Egypt and only have one black god, the whole entire cast is just white men and white women, shows you how much.
Which is insane because Egypt is an African nation. So
it's not even just like
it should be like different shades of brown. Yes.
Yeah, like it's got.
Yeah.
That's like the black Egypt's like when I go to Egypt, when you go to Luxor, not to digress, but when you go to Luxor, there's a statue of Ramesses II, yeah, and you ask them, why is that statue, like the stone is dark, like it's so peaked, the stone, you can't even find that stone again. And the tour guide now, this Arab guy, said to me, he said, yeah, brother, it's because he was the darkest like of all pharaohs. So when they were building his statue, they couldn't just go and get normal like sandstone and sanite. They were like, no. We're going to go to Sudan / Aswan. We're going to pick up this stone from the Nile Valley. We're going to wheel it up over here. We're going to chip into it because we need accurate representation. So how are you then going to have a movie? But again, that's the cognitive dissonance. So that narrative has stayed within them. It's gone with them into bed. They've, made love with their wives and their children. Have come from that, and that narrative is just flown within their household. So when they literally when it gets to the workplace now, and you're trying to tell your manager, I'm not happy on the way you're treating me, even when I'm talking like this, oh, why are you pointing your finger? Or they all start, do you see where I'm coming from? So
it's the way the media portrays black men and women. It's the whole idea of, well, you're strong, and it falls into domestic abuse cases as well.
Right.
Because there's many black men that are not believed. Like they're not believed when they go and ask for help. Because it's like, you can deal with it, it's fine. And if they're with a black woman, it's kind of like, yeah, go deal with it, it's okay. If they're with a white woman, there have been cases where that person has used race to their advantage, where it would then fall into saying white privilege. They've used it because it's like, well, what are you going to do if you try to go to the police and ask them for help? I'll say you attacked me, who do you think they're going to believe? That narrative it's like, it keeps you contained and it keeps you feeling like you do always have to be strong. And that's why I think there is such an increase in mental health in regards to things like depression and like, those types of mental health issues that are developed over
suicide
time.
rate is highest within like men. Because they don't ask for help, because they've also got that whole like masculinity issue. Like, men don't cry, men don't ask for help, men don't get therapy, men, and it doesn't help, it just makes matters worse.
And even things like I've just seen on, like, sometimes if you're like on the train, the way people are so much less inclined to help a black woman that's being racially targeted or abused, so much less inclined. You'll see men sit there and watch her not get up with it.
My
and
God,
it's like, if this was a white older lady that somebody was even talking to like this, everybody would have something to say. But because it's not in this moment, because I'm the only black person here, I'm the only one that can speak on this racial issue that's taking place. But wait, it is everybody's problem, and you're all witnessing it. But it is.
On that, I had a complex where I would always drop my mum and my sister somewhere, or my son's mum somewhere, I would always drop them somewhere.
Yeah.
Like if they'll go in places like, because just like you were saying, I couldn't bear to think of them being on a bus, struggling with a buggy or struggling with shopping. And I know they're not going to get help. No, they're not going to, I just know they're not going to get help. So I never used to have them out there like that. I was like, I know, I'll come and get you. I'll come and drop you, because I knew already that, you know, it's never going to be deemed as, do you see where I'm coming from? So they're not going to be deemed as or taken seriously because they're black women. Oh no, you've got it. You've got this. You're cool. So yeah, but just to end on that, I think that was a good conversation on that. I feel like I probably might do a part 2, because I wanted to go into the I really want people to understand that, you know, there's aspects of this where it can work. There's aspects of being in an interracial relationship prior to you becoming conscious, because I'm finding that's what's happening now. A lot of black people who grew up in places like what's that place, man? Like places out of ends, like what's that college? Not Basildon. There was a Hastings. People that grew up in Hastings or went to Hastings, and people that went to Cambridge, and people that grew up in, you know, parts of Swindon or Hitchin or whatever, and you know, they've settled with white men or white women, sometimes even other races as well, and they have now seen what's going on and think, you know what, for real, I actually agree with what these people are saying. And now, because they're in an interracial relationship, the other counterparts like, yeah, I agree with it too. Can we both work together and now take the journey on finding how we can become, you know, the ones that are like more aware and conscious of it. So I feel like there definitely can be an aspect of that working together. But I feel like in order for it to be sustained, it needs consistent conversation. It needs consistent understanding of culture, and it needs consistent understanding of, you know, what's currently going on, because I've learned you can't really block out anything right now. Right now, especially in 2020, this is the year of information. Like you couldn't sit back even as a black person and be like, why is it all black men always want to go with white women? You can't even say that right now, because there's so much information out there that would argue against it, and there's so much information that will just show you know ones there like that it's not true.
But I think even just on the working together thing, it's what we've been seeing in the protests, and that again is relationship on a broader context. You saw where there were white protesters standing to protect a black male from the police, and the police wouldn't touch him. They just kept trying to get past them to get to that one guy. But that's a way where it's used positively, and it is working together, because they're aware that, you know what, I'm probably less likely to get taken in and arrested than you are. So let's make sure that we're protecting you in this, you know?